Good evening, everyone. And of course, welcome back. That's right. It is time for another very exciting episode of Red Pill News Live. I sincerely hope you guys had a great weekend. I apologize for my long absence, but we are back and better than ever. I see a number of people wishing the family well out in the chat. I really do appreciate that, guys. Thank you very much. My aunt and my cousins all appreciate the prayers as well. All right, so, wow, we've got a bang-up show for you today. As you can tell from the thumbnail, Weekend at Mitch's is currently in effect. It's actually more like 37 days at Mitch's because the Senate has gone on vacation over the weekend. They did this big song and dance, a pony show, trying to pretend like they worked really extra hard to get a whole bunch of things that we really care about done. But the only thing we care about is securing the elections, and that is the one thing they didn't do. We've also got some very, very damaging information about Dr. Anthony Fauci that just dropped today, so we are going to definitely get into that. So if you wouldn't mind, do me a favor, sit back, relax, and grab your popcorn because we're going to get into it right about now. Oh, wait a second. Look at that. My camera's not working. Let me do a quick adjustment. That is not the right one. Oh, look at that. You can see my my gun stand over there. But this is the view that I intend for you to see. Okay, excellent. As you can tell, I still don't have curtains in my office because I've got all of the sunlight coming in from over there. Lisa liked it. I'm not so hot on it because it gives me this like whited out look over here on this side. All right, but before we get into all of the various pieces of news that I have put together for you guys today, I do need to say thank you very much to our very first sponsor today, and that's going to be our friends over here at Rumble. You guys, you hear a lot about crypto, but there is a big part that I think a lot of people miss, and that is the fact that crypto began so that you could own and control your own money. Because after the 2008 financial crisis, when Bitcoin first came out, it was designed as an alternative to banks. Instead of a bank holding onto your money, delaying transfers or limiting access, it puts you in control of that cash. And if you've ever had to wait for a transfer to clear, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So let's fast forward to today. Everybody's heard about crypto, but getting started might seem just a little bit intimidating. This is why I love the Rumble wallet. I use it. It takes all the complexity out of it. It makes it very simple. You choose what you want to work with, whether it's Bitcoin, dollar-backed stablecoins, or even digital gold that's backed by real gold. There's no complicated setup. It connects right with MoonPay so that you can use your credit card, debit card, or your bank account, and you'll be up and running in just a couple of minutes. And then once you get set up, you can even use it to support your favorite creators right here in Rumble, whether it's me or somebody else. It goes to them directly. There's no fees that come out, unlike pretty much every other way that you can donate to keep shows like mine on the air. So if you do this right now, you can scan that QR code on screen if you're on Rumble, or if you're not on Rumble, you can go to wallet.rumble.com. Either way, from there, you will download the Rumble wallet, you will set it up, you will tap buy, and then you'll be in the game. And in just a few minutes, you can go from hearing about crypto to actually owning some. Thank you once again to Rumble for continuing to support the program. And again, if you haven't yet, do me a favor, hit that like button because we have so much to talk about. There were several primaries over the weekend. One of them, which I was really surprised by, was Andy Ogles. Andy Ogles, and I believe this is the same primary as Marsha Blackburn, both in Tennessee. Andy Ogles lost his primary to what is essentially a rhino Democrat plant insert, if you will. There were many, many, many more people who came out to vote in this primary than we've seen in years past. And they have the ability in Tennessee, if you're a Democrat and you want to go in there and vote in a Republican election, you can do that. And then you can basically help elect somebody who is not going to be better than the candidate who's currently in there. I think Andy Ogles was top notch. I really liked the work that he did. Certainly, he's the only guy who had the balls to go after these corrupt judges, and it may not have gone anywhere, but that's because the rest of Congress doesn't have the same size balls as Andy Ogles. Now, also in that same primary was Marsha Blackburn. Marsha Blackburn has won her primary. She's most likely going to end up being the governor of Tennessee. Now, she is pulling some incredible 5D chess maneuvering with her position. So if she is elected to become the governor of Tennessee, Marsha Blackburn plans to stay in her seat until she is actually sworn in, which would mean that she would then become the governor, and for a brief moment in time, she would also be a senator from the state of Tennessee. And then, because she would become governor, she would then relinquish her position as senator, and then she would get to appoint her own replacement, making sure that the current governor doesn't get to put somebody in there who isn't going to support President Trump's agenda. This is wonderful. I wish more people would think like this. We need to actually make sure that we are supporting this agenda in whatever way we possibly can. So Marsha Blackburn, hats off to you, girl. I'm very pleased to say that that's a wonderful idea. I like that. All right. Now, also, over the weekend, actually it was last Thursday, gubernatorial hopeful James Fishback, who one of his high school teachers is actually in the chat. She doesn't like him. She didn't like him back in high school. She doesn't like him now. I want to say that I think James Fishback is kind of performative, and that definitely gives me pause. He says a lot of things that I like. But whether or not he can win, and this has been my contention since the beginning, my rationale as to whether or not I'm going to vote for him is I don't know if he can make it through the primary. And, this is actually an example of one of the reasons why I think he may not be able to make it through the primary. He held this press conference, and he said that he had this bombshell revelation about Byron Donalds, whom I don't like. I don't want to see him elected. And so I was very keen to listen in and see exactly what it was that James Fishback was going to say. Well, he essentially claimed, because of information given to him by a government whistleblower, that Corey, what's his name? Corey, I can't remember his freaking last name. Corey Mills, that Corey Mills was under investigation for sex trafficking, and that Byron Donalds was also under investigation for sex trafficking. Now, at the time that he did this press conference, he said, this is a serious crime. I'm not going to comment on this again, but I felt that the people of Florida needed to know. I agree with him. If it's true, I think the people of Florida definitely need to know. But this is such a serious allegation, and serious allegations require serious sauce if you're going to be making them. Now, he used as an example of why he believed this investigation was happening as the fact that the DOJ had refused to comment on whether or not Byron Donalds was under investigation. Now, the supposed events that led up to this was a hotel casino visit that Donalds and Mills took together. And this hotel, this casino, is, to be fair, basically known as like Prostitute Alley. Like, if you're going to go and try to pick up a hooker outside of Vegas, like, this is the place that you go, I guess. But I wouldn't know anything about that. Never had to pay for it myself, so I don't know exactly what the circumstances are. But Corey Mills obviously has a reputation, and he and Byron Donalds are fairly close. So the DOJ declined to comment. But since that time, the DOJ has definitely commented, and they said that there is no truth to these allegations, that Byron Donalds is not under investigation for federal sex trafficking. So that kind of puts the whole thing to bed, and it makes Fishback look bad in my eyes. It definitely definitely appears that he has a black eye as a result of this. So his ultimate speech was that this investigation into Corey Mills, he claimed, has now expanded to include both U.S. Congressman Byron Donalds and Corey Mills, and they are both believed to have solicited, procured, and paid women for sexual acts at the MGM National Harbor Resort near Washington, D.C. Now, Byron Donalds may have paid for sex. Corey Mills may have paid for sex as well. But it doesn't seem that there is actually a sex trafficking investigation into them. This is just not the kind of thing you can come out and say. But when politicians make these sorts of claims and they are very clearly trying to, dirty up a candidate before an election, man, it just makes me think twice about what the heck they're actually trying to do. And especially just the theatricality with the way that he did it. And so he comes out and he says, actually, let me play the clip, because if you've never seen James Fishback speak, I think that, you should just see a minute of this. Let me get past this commercial. Okay, so he starts by saying this is not political. I'm pretty sure it's political.
This is not political. This is about transparency.
Huh. Hang on just a second. I'm just noticing that the Rumble chat is still not working. Hold on just a sec. Hold on. So, okay. I need to change the pop-up because that is failing. Where is my... Okay, here it is. Okay, so... No, that's incorrect. Sorry, guys. Hold on just a second. Okay. There we go. Okay, now it's working.
On July 21st, 2026, NBC News reported that Republican Florida Congressman Corey Mills was under criminal investigation by the Department of Justice.
They definitely did report that Corey Mills was under criminal investigation. That is correct.
Like virtually every federal investigation, this one began with a single suspect. And
hey, YouTube, if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't have known that the chat wasn't working, so I appreciate you.
Quickly spread to include others. This government whistleblower who approached my campaign has confirmed that this investigation has now expanded to include U.S. Congressman Byron Donalds, who, along with Corey Mills, is under investigation for federal sex trafficking.
Look at it. He's so dramatic with it.
Federal prosecutors are investigating two dates in question: May 17th, 2024, and November 19th, 2024. Dates when Congressman Mills and Donalds are said to have traveled to the MGM National Harbor, a luxury hotel resort in Oxon Hill, Maryland, where prosecutors believe that both Mills and Donalds solicited, procured, and paid women for sexual acts. Federal prosecutors are in the final stages of this investigation and will soon charge both men under Title 18 of the U.S. Code, Section 1952, a felony that carries a conviction of 5 years in prison. In the coming hours, Byron Donalds will call this investigation a political attack.
He did.
It's not. The Department of Justice, led by a Trump appointee of the same political party, is not investigating Congressman Donalds for political reasons. They are investigating him because there is credible evidence that he committed a very serious crime.
So the only question is, did somebody really bring this claim to James Fishback in his campaign? And did they do it to sink his campaign? Because, like I said, the DOJ, rapid response right here, falsely accusing someone of being under investigation is a dangerous form of weaponization. This claim is not true. Congressman Byron Donalds is not under investigation. So it's not that he's just not under investigation for sex trafficking. Apparently, Byron Donalds is not under investigation for anything. And again, that's not to say that I don't think Byron Donalds has done scummy things. I do think he's done scummy things. Like I said last week, the fact that this man will not debate anyone, that immediately tells me that this is totally something that we need to see. If you refuse to debate, if you refuse to stand on your principles and your platform, then how can anybody actually make an informed opinion about how you're going to be in that office? You know, he's got no problem going on freaking, I don't know, Fox News and stuff like that. He talks to people all the time. Why won't he go on a stage and debate the other people who are running against him? The answer to me is obvious. It's so that the only impression that people will have of Byron Donalds is what they've read in the news or what they've seen him say on Fox News or something like that. So James Fishback stepped in a big old pile of shit. Pardon my language, but James Fishback really stepped in it. And I think that he's made it even less likely that he's going to perform very well in the upcoming primary. We're voting in just a couple of days. Early voting is going on right now. So, you know, the only person, you know, besides him that I was considering, again, is Lieutenant Governor Jay Collins. And Jay Collins, yeah, he's been there the whole time that DeSantis has been there. And DeSantis has been just fine for Florida. Not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but certainly he's been better than anybody else. So, anyways, I wanted to get that out there because, like, my neighbor and I have been following this. What's up, JD? And we wanted to see if this was going to be anything. I mean, like, if this was, you know, if this was a real claim, like Jizo Pete's, man, federal sex trafficking, Byron Donalds, we need to look into it. But no, unfortunately. Now, you want to talk about a charter school that Byron Donalds and his wife was involved in that took a whole bunch of money and then never opened. That's another thing entirely. There's a whole bunch of other scandals that these people are involved in. There's also a video of Byron Donalds, like, approaching a woman in a public place and, like, intimidating her. It's just, you know, it's all kinds of weird. Anyways, I don't want to see this guy become governor of Florida, and it's unfortunate that James Fishback has done this because I think people are going to line up behind Byron Donalds now as a yeah, but DeSantis has said that Renner would be a good candidate, but he hasn't endorsed him to my knowledge. And I don't know nothing about Renner except that DeSantis said his name. Let me see. Renner, Florida governor. And this is the thing. I mean, like, you know, Renner has had a really low profile too. Let's go to his website. Let's go check it out. Yeah, Donald Trump endorsed Byron Donalds because Byron Donalds has the greatest name recognition. Everybody needs to realize that a lot of times Donald Trump will just throw his support behind somebody who is most likely to win. That doesn't mean that that person should win. All right, so this is Paul Renner's platform. Maybe let me look at this. Number one, make Florida affordable again. Ooh, eliminate property taxes. That's okay. I haven't heard anybody else say that. By shifting the tax burden to new residents, tourists, and international real estate speculators, reduce homeowners' insurance premiums by 20%, lower electric rates by bringing transparency and accountability to the rate-setting process, pass an immediate moratorium on the construction of hyperscale AI data centers that threaten Florida's aquifer, land, and grid. Okay, hold on. I got to get some applause on that one. All right. Number two, keep Florida safe. Stop public corruption by prosecuting self-dealing stop public corruption by prosecuting self-dealing by elected officials, appointees, and lobbyists. I love it. Recall elected officials who engage in insider trading. Love it. Enforce illegal immigration laws, enact the death penalty for human trafficking of minors, and limit death penalty appeals to 3 years. Pass an open carry law to strengthen Second Amendment rights and repeal any gun ownership restrictions from the Parkland bill. Absolutely, 100%. I'm liking this guy more and more. Number 3, protect health freedom and our environment. Strengthen the Medical Freedom Act to end mandates and protect parental rights. Enforce laws that prohibit geoengineering. I think we already have those. Oh, enforce them, not pass them. And weather modification. Stop digital IDs. Promote digital data privacy. Expand Florida's wildlife corridor. And keep a permanent moratorium on development of state parks. Okay, awesome. This guy has my vote already. Number 4, keep Florida free. Stop election fraud and make Florida the gold standard for election integrity. Pass an AI Bill of Rights to protect children and our privacy. Stop unlawful government surveillance and eliminate flock cameras. Get them. Get them, boy. Get them. The state of Florida is not for sale. Florida requires proven leadership, which puts Florida first. I'm the only candidate who fought the liberal special interests and won. They haven't gone away, but I'll never back down. I will pursue this contract with Florida to keep our state the beacon of freedom in America. May God bless the free state of Florida. All right, so yeah, I mean, this is great. He's got there's no literature, there's no advertising that I've seen. I didn't see him on any of the one debate that they had. But yeah, so I mean, talk is cheap. I mean, here's the thing. I did look into this guy's record, and he does have a good record. And again, he's also the only one that DeSantis named. I mean, I think that what was his name? Byron Donalds is, he was looking for DeSantis to anoint him, but DeSantis hasn't done that. So anyways, if you're a Florida resident, you guys should look into it as well. All right. Now, thank you to Principal Enigma, who says Fishback is too pretty to be right. Boys Blanc, thank you for the cookie. And no thanks, Joe. Thank you for the cookie as well. Good Monday to you both, Lisa and Zach. I hope you had a great weekend. I look forward to a new week of reporting. Thank you for your work, and God bless and stay safe all. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay. All right. So, okay. So we have to talk about some of that public corruption that Mr. Renner mentioned there in his chat, or excuse me, on his website. Now, this is not Florida, this is California, but a former U.S. Customs and Border Protection officer was just sentenced to 9 years in federal prison. You see, he admitted he used his position as a CBP officer at the Tecate Port of Entry to help a Mexican drug cartel, Sinaloa cartel-linked traffickers. They were moving drug-filled vehicles into the United States, and he was the one who was allowing it to happen. Federal prosecutors announced this guilty plea last week. His name is Jesse Clark Garcia. He actually pled guilty last year to 9 felony counts that were tied to this drug smuggling scheme. And prosecutors say Garcia provided traffickers with his work schedule and inspection lane assignments, so that way they could steer the vehicles that would be loaded with narcotics into his lane when he was when he was working. Garcia said this scheme had been underway for the last 5 years, since 2021. Now, federal prosecutors also say that Garcia and another fellow former CBP officer, Diego Bonilla, would use an emoji-based code in text messages. This way they could communicate their work schedules and their lane assignments to the traffickers, and the prosecutors wouldn't catch on to it. Now, the information that they would give the cartel traffickers would allow this organization to route their vehicles carrying the drugs into the officer's lane. There, the vehicles would then be allowed to enter the United States without inspection. They would just tap the car, send it on through, and I'm sure that they would get a big payday. Now, Garcia also allegedly manipulated the CBP's duty switching policies. That way he could put himself in inspection lanes where he wasn't originally scheduled to work. There would be other occasions, too, prosecutors say, where he falsely claimed he was having technical problems, which prevented the required inspections. And that would even happen when system alerts would indicate that vehicles needed additional checks. So what would Garcia get for selling out the United States of America, allowing drugs to flow freely in the hands of sick and twisted cartel members, the type of people who will just like rip your face off and leave you hanging from a Mexican overpass? And then, of course, he would also condemn American citizens to die when they would take these drugs. He would receive at least at a minimum, $10,000 for every drug-filled vehicle he allowed through the port. And God knows how many came through. As part of his July 2025 plea, Garcia admitted to facilitating the importation of at least 100 kilograms of fentanyl, 107 kilograms of methamphetamine, and 270 kilograms of cocaine. Now, federal prosecutors also say Garcia would then use his illegal proceeds to fund a lifestyle that was obviously well beyond what he could afford as a government employee. Thank you so much to Colonel Towner Watkins, the one and only, for bringing over her audience in that raid. I really do appreciate you, Colonel Watkins. Roxanne, appreciate you. Now, he used this money to purchase a whole bunch of things. This is how people get caught. Let's be honest. You start flashing a bunch of money. You're on a civil servant salary. All of a sudden, you show up with a brand new BMW or a Mercedes-Benz or a Maybach or maybe even a Bentley or something stupid like that. But he was living in San Diego. He got himself a luxury vehicle. He also was co-owner of an equine racing business. He was a horse race owner. And he was building a ranch in Mexico, probably thinking that he's going to go down there and escape before everything went south north of the border. Now, once the investigators started zeroing in on Garcia, prosecutors say he stopped reporting for work. He ignored questions that came from his CBP supervisors, and then it was late March of 2024 when authorities saw him driving into Mexico in a vehicle that was fully packed. He was trying to get down there with all of his personal provisions. Well, that's too bad, because Mexican authorities ended up arresting Garcia on May 2nd, 2024. This was obviously at the behest of U.S. authorities and pursuant to a federal warrant. They then transferred him into U.S. custody later that day, and his co-defendant, former CBP officer Diego Bonilla, was just sentenced to 15 years in federal prison in November of last year for his role in the scheme. Officer Garcia betrayed his oath, his fellow officers, and his country, U.S. Attorney Adam Gordon said. Officer Garcia's conduct warranted this significant sentence. Now, officials with the CBP's Office of Professional Responsibility also said the agency remains committed to identifying and prosecuting employees who betray the public trust. I can't tell you how happy it makes me to see these sorts of things happening. Unfortunately, during the last administration and under many administrations, we never would have seen this stuff because the money was flowing all along the chain. But thank God we've got people in there right now who are paying attention. We do not need these drugs in our country. They have quite literally destroyed our nation. They have destroyed families. They have torn apart the fabric of the social contract. And these Mexican drug dealers bringing their wares north of the border so that they can kill our children deserve the harshest punishments possible. All right. Now, I have a special guest that's going to be joining us tomorrow. He is an attorney, and he has a speciality in constitutional law and in personal civil rights. All right, now, we're going to be talking about the flock phenomenon because right now, flock is everywhere. People are, I've reported on so many different situations where police officers have abused the flock system. It's not just police that have access to flock. Your insurance company has access to flock. Probably anybody that has a position where they can look into your private information, they're going to be able to look into flock. But this is another one where the police broke bad. Savannah, Georgia Police Department, they just had to fire 6 of their employees, 4 cops and 2 non-officers. All of them were misusing the flock cameras in unconstitutional searches. Now, flock is this really sophisticated surveillance system, and they've sold it to a good portion of American cities and locations, police departments, basically saying that this is mainly an automated license plate reader system. But it is so much more than that, and I'm going to prove it to you today. In this particular instance, these 6 employees of the Savannah Police Department conducted at least 127 searches on the system. Not a single one of them was with a legitimate law enforcement reason. Now, the thing that makes me upset about this, and we've had a number of officers who were actually charged in these scandals, but in this particular instance, so far, nobody has been charged. You've got 6 officers who clearly violated the constitutional rights of at least 127 individuals, but this is where the DOJ needs to step in. They should be launching criminal investigations because this is a civil rights issue right here. Now, let's take a look at this local reporting.
6 former Savannah Police Department employees, including 4 officers, are now under criminal investigation after being fired for allegedly misusing these controversial surveillance cameras made by the company Flock.
Totally honest, I'm disappointed. I'm pissed off about it.
The employees allegedly using the system to make personal searches involving family and acquaintances. The high-tech AI-powered cameras read license plates and store that data for police departments to use. Over 120,000 deployed nationwide to help fight crime. They're on streetlights, bridges, and highways. But backlash is growing amid rising reports of misuse. Dozens of officers now charged or accused of using the technology inappropriately, including stalking. This North Carolina police officer arrested for allegedly using it to track her boyfriend's ex-wife more than 30 times.
That's a bad look.
She's set to appear in court at the end of the month.
That's what bothers me the most, that the people that use this stuff for personal gain.
Critics also calling these cameras an invasion of privacy. Some are being vandalized in acts of protest. In Texas, this camera cut in half. And in Minnesota, a man posting these videos of himself covering up the cameras with tape, telling ABC the technology is dangerous. But Flock telling ABC News their cameras do exactly what they're supposed to do.
They do exactly what they're supposed to do. And violating your constitutional rights is exactly what they're supposed to do. This is all the rage right now because you've got so many people who are just now becoming aware of it. They basically took over the United States of America in a very short period of time. And the amount of information that Flock can gather from you, it will not only read your license plate, it will be able to, it scans your entire car. It takes pictures from every angle. It can show your movements, your operations that you go through on a daily basis. If you deviate from that standard operating procedure, it will take note. If you're in the vicinity of a robbery, okay, you may become unwittingly a suspect. It will not only scan your license plate, it will have all of your bumper stickers, so they could quite literally dive into somebody based on their political leanings. And they are not only being used on public roadways, and this is where a lot of people are getting very upset. But you are having, in some instances, I reported on this last week, every single Flock camera was cut down in the middle of the night, and that's happening in a lot of different areas.
We helped in over 1 million crimes last year, over 10,000 missing people.
And some agree.
The benefits, I believe, outweigh the issues here.
And Flock saying that criminal acts like vandalism should never be the answer here as people continue to make their voices heard in this ever-growing debate about individual privacy versus public safety.
Yes. Now, here's the thing. There is no evidence that the use or the proliferation of Flock cameras have increased prosecutions or have made the streets safer. And that would be a key piece of evidence. Flock attempted to write a white paper looking to actually prove that, but they were unable to do so. Now, this is my gun range, you guys. This is here in Daytona. All right. At the entrance of the gun range, they put 2 Flock cameras up, one to catch you going in and one to catch you going out. This is a private roadway. This is not a public roadway. There is no reason for the police or Flock's AI or anybody else to be watching who is coming and going from this gun club. Take a look at this. This is a lawyer in Daytona Beach who caught this.
There are freaking flock cameras at the gun range. This is the entrance to the gun range. So they got you coming in. They also got you going out. Today's Wednesday, so the gun range is closed until 2. So there's nobody here. Now these are in the driveway to the gun range. They're not out on the road. This is only catching cars and trucks coming in the driveway to the gun range, and right there's the range. Unbelievable. I did send a records request to FWC for information on the flock cameras and the placement here. I've yet to get a response. I'll let you know if I do get a response. But if you come to the Ocala gun range, just understand that you're going to be on the flock camera. And who comes to the gun range? Well, of course.
Second Amendment practitioners go to the gun range. This is the scariest example of what this stuff can do.
Gun owners, people that are shooting. So they have a record of people who are coming to the gun range.
So they also, like, scan your face. They have digital facial recognition, AI facial recognition. Take a look at this. I saw somebody in the chat said it matters who's using them. It doesn't matter to me who's using them because it's not just law enforcement. It's the fact that all of your private information is no longer private. Take a look at this. I mentioned insurance. Those flock cameras, I can access them at work. I work in insurance. We use them routinely now. They have me pulling images of your car to see if you lied about damage. Just last week, they had me check multiple cameras on someone's vehicle to see if the damage they claimed had existed or if it was truly new. In about 30 seconds, I had over 150 images of this vehicle all over their hometown. These are not crime-fighting tools. They are being used to actually F you. We do it through an ISO search, and all we need is your name and address or a VIN or license plate. Now, I told you guys last week about HaveIBeenFlocked.com. That is a service where you can go and see like if your vehicle has popped up in a search or if it's got information about you. Lauren Fix, my good friend, the car coach, also had a tool that she told me about. And hold on, I'm just getting it pulled up. If you guys aren't following Lauren for car news, then you really should be. Okay, hers was. Gosh, where is it? dflock.org. You guys might already know about dflock.org. dflock is on X as well. But yeah, so it's not just law enforcement, it's anybody. And this is the thing. So let's say you're a pretty woman, all right? Or maybe you're a handsome guy and you meet somebody out and about, and the person that you meet happens to work for an insurance company or a local police agency. And they want to figure out where you live. They want to know more about you. They want to see what kind of car you drive. Is that any of their business? Absolutely not. And they shouldn't be able to look that stuff up. But those people are able to do that. All right, now take a look at this. Here's another example of how terrible these things can go. A woman here in the United States was just pulled out of her car at gunpoint twice in 1 week because the flock cameras mistakenly identified her vehicle as something that should be stopped by police. I believe they thought it was stolen. Now, how did it do that, you might ask? It misread her license plate.
Now to a Fox 6 exclusive, scary moments on the interstate as guns are drawn on a woman near Brookfield. Brookfield police say they thought they were pulling over a murder suspect yesterday.
Turns out it was a mistake by another department with the flock license plate reader technology. Ben Hansen spoke with the woman seen on video who says this isn't the first time this happened to her this week.
Like, where could we go? Like, it was just a whole lot, like.
Amber Newell is still shaken up from Thursday.
I haven't been to sleep since this happened. Every time I close my eyes, all I can see is guns.
When Brookfield police surrounded her car on I-94, drew their guns, and told her to come out with her hands up.
My mom is like my go-to person. I wanted to call her so bad yesterday, but I'm like, if I make a sudden move, it's going to be over. It's going to end my life.
Friday, we learned Newell did nothing wrong.
It was very embarrassing because after they put us in cuffs, they walked us to the car. I'm not knowing what's going on. I'm scared. All you see is people in their cars recording.
Milwaukee police say they accidentally didn't remove the alert previously placed on her vehicle in the flat camera system. At one point, the vehicle was suspected of being tied to a homicide. Eventually, Milwaukee police were no longer interested in the vehicle, but the department didn't cancel that alert. So when Brookfield police saw the vehicle on a flat camera, they responded. Brookfield's chief says his officers did nothing wrong.
The only thing they said was, contact Milwaukee Police Department, it's their fault. That's all they kept saying was, it's their fault, it's not our fault.
Somebody says, sue the cops. Cops have qualified immunity. You can't sue them. Nobody was hurt. Sure, she was humiliated. She had to get down on the highway with her and her kids and lay on the hot-ass pavement. And the other situation that I was thinking about was a mom and their, 5-year-old child. That was the one that the cameras said was a stolen vehicle. This one is far worse because they could have obviously died.
It's their fault.
MPD declined an interview. Newell says last Monday, the same thing happened when Milwaukee police pulled her over with guns drawn. She says officers never explained why, towed her car, and let her go. Newell says she's still scared to drive her car, and her daughter is too.
My daughter keep asking, Mama, is the police gonna get us? She don't want to ride in the car no more because she don't know if the police gonna pull us over and do it again.
Now, she's hoping for an explanation and an apology.
I'm really mad at Milwaukee MPD because y'all failed. Y'all failed the system. Y'all failed me. Y'all failed everybody. I'm traumatized now.
In Milwaukee, Ben Hansen, Fox 6 News.
So, yeah, horrible, horrible situation and essentially no recourse. All right. So anyways, the guest for tomorrow, looking forward to this. His name is Ron Chapman. Ron is he's a U.S. Marine Corps veteran. He's a former federal prosecutor. He's argued before the Supreme Court, and he is a defense attorney now, helping to exonerate people who truly are not guilty. So anyways, he's going to be talking with us tomorrow about the flock camera networks and what this means for your Fourth Amendment rights, because this is very soon going to make its way before the Supreme Court, undeniably. All right, so I need to say thank you to several very kind people over here on Rumble. There's no way that there were 45 subscriptions donated. For whatever reason, Freedom76 donated 5 subscriptions to the good folks over on Rumble, and it shows me that there are 45 of them. Thank you, Freedom76. I appreciate you. Thank you also to Principled Enigma. He says, here's another good one. They only do what they are designed to do. Yes, the only problem is that what they are designed to do is not fully disclosed. They, like I said, they claim that they are merely automated license plate readers, but the true implications of the surveillance state and what the flock cameras and their AI system are able to do is not really fully talked about. So that's why I wanted to have Ron here tomorrow. Emerald Dragon, thank you so much. I really hope they see me flipping them off every time I go by a flock camera or the freaking camera gurneys along the highway. Hashtag go flock yourself. They definitely do. Be careful. Freedom76 says, I hope you check out that debate with Renner and Fishback. I'm actually going to go look that up because I didn't see it. So thank you very much. Also, Untamed Nation, you are a scholar and a gentleman. Thank you very much for rating the stream. I appreciate it. All right. So wonderful news, you guys. We're going to transition a little bit to talk about the current efforts to stifle immigration into the United States. Now, President Trump was inaugurated over a year ago, January of last year. And since that time, I think that Marco Rubio has been one of the biggest MVPs of this administration. It's funny. We asked my son, who's in his early 20s, what are you hearing? What are people talking about? Who do people like? And, what did they see in the administration, and he said, Marco Rubio. Everybody loves Marco Rubio. I would imagine that probably has something to do with the number of jobs he's doing and with all of the funny memes that they make about him. And he had obviously totally leans into it. But under Marco Rubio, the State Department has revoked more than 175,000 visas that have been issued to foreign nationals. Now, the department says those visas have been revoked from people who either violated their visa terms, they committed crimes, they called for violence against Americans, maybe they defrauded U.S. citizens. Clearly, they have abused the immigration system in one form or another, or they are a threat to national security. Now, according to the State Department, the majority of the revocations that have been handed out were following encounters with law enforcement, things that involved a wide range of criminal conduct, drunk driving arrests, assault, theft, drug offenses, also accounting for a pretty significant share of them, while other visas were revoked over things that we've talked about as often as we can. Sexual crimes, crimes against children, child abuse, fraud, embezzlement, any type of related criminal conduct. If you have a visa and you come to the United States of America to commit crimes, you're going to get caught, you're going to get found out, and we're going to go ahead and tell you to go back home. Now, this crackdown is part of the administration's much broader effort to not only tighten up immigration laws, but to enforce the immigration laws that we have on the books right now, because frankly, for many years, they have just kind of been persona non grata. They act like they simply don't exist. Foreign nationals who come to the United States of America must follow the laws. If you do not follow the laws, then you're going to be asked to leave. You might be arrested and you might be kicked out. It doesn't matter whether you came here legally or illegally. It doesn't matter if you have a valid work permit. A valid work permit does not supersede the fact that you have committed a crime against a person or the people of the United States. A valid work permit does not supersede the fact if you overstayed your visa. A valid work permit means absolutely nothing. It is merely a step in a series of steps to keep you here in the United States legally. And if you step out of the line, if you start coloring out on the other part of the page, then obviously we don't want you here and you need to leave. There's plenty of them here that I don't want here anyways, and we will address them. But the reason this is great is because protecting Americans should be job one. There's only one reason in my mind that the U.S. government should even exist, and that is to protect the homeland and to protect her people. Protecting Americans from crimes that are committed by illegal aliens is one of the things that President Trump ran upon. This was a major tenet of his 2024 campaign. But the administration's visa revocation campaign makes it exceedingly clear. Lawful immigration status is not a shield from accountability. I don't care if you came here legally, if you did something to endanger a life of an American citizen. Frankly, that citizen is more important than you. I don't care about your family. I don't care about your circumstances. I don't care how many kids you had while you were here. I don't care how good your job is or how many people you have showing up to say that you're a good person. If you did something to an American citizen, you immediately forfeit that goodwill that we extended to you when we allowed you to come into this nation. Foreign nationals who violate laws forfeit the privilege to remain here in this country. And that is it. There is no wiggle room on this. Now, the State Department put out a statement in relation to this 175,000 visas that have been revoked. Under President Trump and Secretary Rubio's leadership, the State Department will continue to identify, investigate, and revoke the visas of foreign nationals who threaten the safety of the American people. A U.S. visa, as we have repeatedly heard, is a privilege. It is not a right. The department remains committed to using every tool available to protect our communities from those who abuse it. This brings me great pleasure, my friends. I love to see these people being removed from our country. Now, just in case anybody has any, confusion about this, Stephen Miller posted a segment of the Immigration and Nationality Act. Let's just take a look, because you've got a lot of people in the mainstream media, a lot of talking heads, a lot of brain dead TDS suffering, brain worms, rotted liberals out there who seem to have no real concept of how things work. We can just take a look at Section 215A of the Immigration and Nationality Act. Restrictions and prohibitions. Unless otherwise ordered by the president. Say that again with me. Unless otherwise ordered by the president. So next time we end up in court, I'm sure that this is going to be a part of the DOJ's arguments. It shall be unlawful, number one, for any alien to depart from or enter or attempt to depart from or enter the United States except under such reasonable rules, regulations, and orders, and subject to such limitations and exceptions as the president may prescribe. Number two, for any person to transport or attempt to transport from or into the United States, any person with knowledgeable or reasonable cause to believe that the departure or entry of any such person is forbidden by this section. Number three, for any person knowingly to make any false statement in an application for permission to depart from or enter the United States with intent to induce or secure the granting of such permission either for himself or another. Number four, for any person knowingly to furnish or attempt to furnish or assist in furnishing to another a permit or evidence of permission to depart or enter not issued and designed for such any other person's use. 5, for any person knowingly to use or attempt to use any permit or evidence of permission to depart or enter not issued and designed for this use. And number 6, for any person to forge, counterfeit, mutilate, or alter, or cause or procure to be forged, counterfeited, mutilated, or altered any permit of entry. So yes, it sounds like the president has a remarkable amount of power over who comes and goes from the United States of America. And that is perfectly drawn out and exemplified in this instance here. Yes, TPS, temporary protected status for Haitians, is done. And Haitian migrants, such as those in Ohio, are now being given a choice. You can take a check for $2,600 and a free plane ticket back to the island hellhole of Haiti, or we can fit you with an ankle monitor and then we will deport you. All of these people have already had their cases decided. These Haitians simply don't understand how they should be going about the process of leaving. They should have taken the $2,600. They should have taken the free plane ticket, but instead they have allowed themselves to be fitted with ankle monitors so that they will be known, their whereabouts will be known to immigration and ICE at all times. Mass deportations are happening.
Can we ask him a question?
Okay, buck up, Buttercup. Now, immigration attorneys in Ohio have actually recommended to these Haitians that they not leave, that they not accept the $2,600 and the free plane ticket. Now, you know what's going to happen. Those immigration attorneys are being paid by NGOs to represent these people and try to keep them here in the United States. So the recommendations they are giving to these people are entirely self-serving. This guy, these crocodile tears that this guy is crying, they are falling on deaf ears. There is no rain hitting the pavement because he is truly performative right now, like a lot of people we see out there. Listen, Jean-Francois, how long were you here? How long were you here in the United States on TPS? How many different opportunities did you have afforded to you to become a legally recognized resident of the United States of America or to become a citizen of the United States of America? What's really unfortunate, okay, is that a lot of these people were probably under the mistaken presumption that temporary protected status was actually permanent protected status, but it's not. And you could have gotten yourself $2,600. You could have gotten yourself a free plane ticket. And then you know what you could have done? You could have turned right around and you could have tried to come to the United States legally. But now you're being deported and you will not be able to come back into the United States. When the government finds you to be here illegally and then they tell you you must leave and we are removing you, you forfeit any opportunity to come back at any point in the future. Now, I'm sure he's feeling very down about himself right now, and I understand. I mean, he's probably got a much comfier life here than he has in Haiti. But the good news is that all of these people who have gained requisite skills and education here in the United States, they can go back to Haiti and hopefully make it not such a shithole. Haiti has been around for 200 years, 50 years less than the United States of America, and they have never had a functioning government. Go back to Haiti and make something of your tiny island nation. Turn it into a place that people want to go, that people want to live. You don't need to do that here in the United States of America. We've got it, homie. Go home. Not a tear on his face. Jeff, Jeff says it's tough with their corrupt leadership. Who is the leadership of Haiti? Citizens of Haiti. All right, the people of Haiti are the ones ruling themselves. It's definitely fair to say that corruption exists within the human heart. Okay, but the people of Haiti have never successfully put non-corrupt people in. Is there a statement here, a larger statement about the people who live in Haiti? Is it fair to say that like every single person in Haiti is corrupt? I don't know. But look at every colonial nation and you will see the exact same situation. There is not a functioning colonial nation that exists with this population. All right, it looks like he's actually finally eked a tear out. So yes, they chose to wear these ankle monitors. Isn't it like a mafia in Haiti? If you're doing good, you have to pay off the corrupt government. So, I mean, it's just like any African and Caribbean nation that is run by blacks. I mean, like, that's the long and the short of it. Yeah, they have a mentality of selfishness, of corruption. And yeah, sure, there are gangs there. We've got gangs here in the United States. But they have had, my point is that they have had 200 years to get it right. And from the start, it's been the exact same situation. That is really it. I think it's a much larger commentary on the people that live there. They had an opportunity. They were handed a functioning society with infrastructure 200 years ago, and instead they squandered it. All right, now let's take a look at Massachusetts. Still on the subject of immigration. Governor Maura Healey, who may or may not be a girl who disappeared many years ago and then suddenly came into politics in the Democrat circles, has just signed a new law earlier this month blocking ICE and Immigration and Customs Enforcement from accessing a variety of locations around the state. This is not going to stick, okay? The supremacy clause of the Constitution is definitely in play. But Healey described the law, which names schools, daycares, hospitals, healthcare centers, nursing homes, courthouses, as places where ICE cannot access. And the strongest legislation in the country against ICE is here in Massachusetts. So the official claimed that children in Chelsea, where she signed this legislation, have not been attending school for fear of ICE encounters. The only people who have to fear ICE encounters are illegal aliens, Maura. Okay. Illegal aliens are the only people that you have to worry about. So are you telling me that all of the children in Chelsea are illegal aliens? Illegal aliens are receiving free education on the backs of the Massachusetts taxpayers. She also claimed that people have stopped going to the doctor's office or testifying in court to avoid ICE. The law I'm signing today is a public safety law, she said. I think we can agree we need immigration reform in this country. We can agree we need controls at the border. We can also agree that ICE is so wrong with what it's doing, and ICE needs to be stopped here in Massachusetts and around the country, just stopped in its tracks. It's like what's happening in Massachusetts, very similar to what you actually see in Haiti. The only thing is that Massachusetts is functioning at a slightly higher level. And, of course, they are doing all of the same pay to play. They're wasting all of that money. The new law comes as ICE expands their nationwide crackdown, with detentions reaching a record level in July. You had a representative from the Department of Homeland Security give a statement to CBS News and said, instead of working with us, Massachusetts lawmakers are choosing to release violent criminals from their jails directly back into communities to perpetrate more crimes and create more victims. Wow, it's a lawless hellhole, just like Haiti. When politicians bar local law enforcement from working with DHS, our law enforcement officers have to have more visible presence so we can find out and apprehend the criminals left out of jails and then back into communities. 7 of the top 10 safest cities in the United States cooperate with ICE. There are 15 sanctuary states across the country as of June, according to a report from the Center on Immigration Studies. Such cities, counties, and states across the country have laws, ordinances, regulations, resolutions, policies, and other practices that obstruct immigration enforcement and shield criminals from ICE. In the areas where you have these laws, you have a lack of public safety because these criminals go directly back out into the community so that they can continue to victimize. Now, we will talk more about some specific cases a little bit later in the show, but let me say thank you to Emerald Dragon. Don't worry if it's freedom of speech. Because I'm Italian, I talk with my hands. I'm not worried. Don't worry about it. And then BDR1776. Why do they need one on walking trails if they only read plates? Exactly. They don't. That's because they're using them for facial recognition purposes in those instances. Lee Walden says, whip me, slap me, flock me, and make me write bad checks. Sounds like Common Core to me. You bunch of pogs. Love you, Zach. Love you too, Lee. I live in Masshole, and we have commie rat bastards running the shit show. It's got my jummies all roughed up. All right, so wonderful news, you guys. Earlier today, President Trump signed an executive order that is aimed at reducing the number of vaccines that children are recommended, also increasing confidence in that schedule if parents want to take advantage of it. Of course, you don't have to. There are means by which you can object, whether it is conscientious objection through religious accommodation, medical objection. There are a number of different ways. It's different in every single state. But ultimately, according to a fact sheet, before the actual signing took place, President Trump was changing recommendations to align with the childhood vaccination schedule that is aligned with a number of other countries. He said previously he wanted it to be the gold standard of science, and there are 3 policies that he's adopting. So the new executive order builds on the prior executive orders he's already written, in large part because President Trump himself will look to educate the public from his office about these changes. So first, the order better educates states on how to harmonize their policies with Health and Human Services. And there is a study finding that America's 18-disease childhood vaccine schedule is a lot more crowded than those in other high-income nations like Europe and Asia. The order grants families greater allowance to space out childhood vaccines into separate medical visits and to separate the combined measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine into 3 single disease shots. Second, the order calls on the Health and Human Services Task Force on Safer Childhood Vaccines, which was first created in 1986 by a law, but it's basically not been used since 1999, to generate generate a report in 90 days on how to implement this executive order, which includes ways for the commercial sector so that they can produce individual MMR shots and recommend research studies on how to optimally space these shots out. The task force also includes the National Institutes of Health and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. And then third, the executive order directs the Department of Justice to investigate whether states are in violation of parental authority, religious freedom, disability accommodations, and religious and medical exemptions. You've also got other high-income countries that are implementing vaccine mandates, but nevertheless, they don't have high vaccination rates. By signing this executive order, the president is helping Americans who are asking questions, especially post-COVID, about vaccine requirements and opening up a dialogue to encourage public trust, a White House official said. We are still recommending the measles and polio vaccine. Now, on the topic in particular, there's been a lot of media misinformation, not medical misinformation, media misinformation and misreporting. If you read the EO, there is nothing not grounded in data and gold standard science. We are taking an evidence-based approach, but a lot of the reporting is not evidence-based. Now, polling conducted last October by Tony Fabrizio found that 73% of voters expressed concern about childhood vaccine mandates, and a whopping 90% of voters expressed concern about the pharmaceutical industry's corrupting influence. It sounds like most people are based and red-pilled on the subject of vaccines. Now, the Wall Street Journal reported on July 27th that President Trump was turning up the heat on HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to do more about vaccines. They first reported in a meta-analysis last year that America's chock-a-block vaccination schedule was way out of step with many other wealthy countries, and they recommended 11 critical vaccines for which broad international consensus exists. And then in December of last year, President Trump signed that presidential memorandum, which directed the Department of Health and Human Services to align our core childhood vaccine recommendations with best practices from peer-developed countries. And in May, President Trump signed an executive order realigning the United States core childhood vaccine recommendations with these same best practices from other nations. Internal documents from the makers of Tylenol and from the FDA show there was evidence accumulating about a potential link between exposure to Tylenol in utero and neurological damage. And then other studies have pointed to exposure in the drug in early childhood as also problematic. So this is why you saw a lot of morons on the left pregnant and taking Tylenol and basically giving their children autism, which is just awful. So earlier today in the Oval Office, President Trump signed this executive order. The U.S. no longer recommends the Hep B vaccine. It's a sexually transmitted disease. There's no real reason that children should be getting it. They also are not recommending the COVID-19 vaccine, and they are also not recommending the flu vaccine for all young children. President Trump is also now allowing legal challenges to states who are violating the rights of parents who are attempting to keep their children from getting so many shots, either seeking religious or medical examinations. And obviously, Big Pharma is not going to be happy about this. Let's go ahead and take a listen to President Trump as he signs the order.
Separate visits for vaccines rather than giving them all in the same day. Very importantly, vaccinations for hepatitis B, COVID-19, and influenza, among others, are no longer recommended for all children. In addition, this executive order directs the Attorney General to advance legal challenges against states that violate children's rights to religious or medical vaccination exemptions for the exemptions. Other countries, separate visits for vaccine.
All right. So the Attorney General allowing for the advancement of legal challenges against states that violate the rights of parents is, in my opinion, the biggest news coming out of this. Sure, not forcing all 80 vaccines on kids, that's wonderful. But if you were already educated about the dangers of these things, certainly compounded on top of each other, then, you were already aware of that and you were probably already trying to do the right thing. But you've got some states that are taking kids from their parents because the parents are trying to get medical or religious exemptions. And I think that you're probably going to have a lot of cases that end up going against these Democrat-led states because they have definitely violated the rights of parents. Now, we also have some good news coming out of the White House. Do you remember Will Scharf? Will Scharf has been present at virtually every one of President Trump's most consequential executive order signings. And that's because Will Scharf was one of the biggest drivers behind the vast majority of President Trump's life-altering changes that he's made to the United States government. So over the weekend, President Trump announced that Scharf is now going to replace Dave Warrington as the White House counsel. This takes effect on September 1st. Scharf is a former federal prosecutor. He is currently the White House staff secretary, so he works with President Trump on a daily basis. And he's going to continue to work with the president on a daily basis because not only will he be White House counsel, but he's also going to be the assistant to the president. Dave Warrington did a good job. He served as President Trump's counsel since he came in January 2025. He's going to be going back to the private sector. The full statement from President Trump was, "It is my great honor to announce that effective September 1st, Will Scharf will become assistant to the president and White House counsel, replacing a man, Dave Warrington, who has done a truly outstanding job as White House counsel. And before that, for my presidential campaign, David will be going back to the private sector. Will has done an amazing job in his current role as White House staff secretary and has also served as chairman of the National Capital Planning Commission. I know Will well. He previously represented me in numerous cases, including at the Supreme Court during the Biden administration's corrupt and illegal campaign of weaponization. He also previously served as a federal prosecutor, worked as an attorney in private practice, clerked for 2 federal appeals court judges, and was a top student at both Princeton and Harvard Law. Will is tough, strong, and smart. He also loves our country and respects the law. Will Scharf will do a great job as the White House counsel." So Will served as President Trump's legal defense team in the presidential immunity case that made its way before the Supreme Court. In July of 2024, the Supreme Court obviously ruled 6-3. President Trump has absolute immunity for his core constitutional powers. Former presidents are entitled to at least a presumption of immunity for their official acts, and the Supreme Court ruled that there is no immunity for unofficial acts. One of the most consequential decisions by the Supreme Court in recent memory. Now, we also have new information coming from President Trump's White House Government Transparency Task Force. New records were released, declassified by President Trump, showing that the FBI in May of 2017 not only opened the Oxford comma investigation into President Trump, but they also opened a criminal probe against Attorney General Jeff Sessions into whether or not he made false statements. Now, the probe on that one was codenamed March Toll. That probe was opened in that same 24-hour window as Oxford comma, and it claimed without any evidence that President Trump fired FBI Director James Comey because he was acting as a Russian agent. Now, both of those cases got referred to Special Counsel Robert Mueller, and of course, they both came up short because there was no there there. Now, just like Oxford comma, the March Toll probe relied on flimsy evidence. What was that evidence, you might ask? A letter from 2 Democrat senators that was weeks old and a story that they planted in the left-leaning Huffington Post. Let me actually show you where, I guess I didn't bring it up, but the letter itself was from Al Franken and one other U.S. senator. I don't remember the name of that one. But this is the FBI document right here, opening the preliminary investigation regarding March Toll. There was nothing for them to investigate into Jeff Sessions, and yet they did it anyway. I'm sure more information will be coming out about this in the coming days and weeks, especially now that the Senate has, over the weekend, finally confirmed Attorney General Todd Blanche. This was one of the last things that they did before they left for their 37-day vacation. Of course, they did not pass the SAVE Act. So now that Todd Blanche has been confirmed as the Attorney General, I believe that this will unshackle him to be able to move forward with the most consequential investigations that we have been waiting to see. You know, President Trump has had, Pam Bondi, all of them. I'm not going to go through them. Every single attorney general that President Trump has had Hasn't been a single prosecution of a deep state asset. Now, of course, we are in the midst of an investigation into John Brennan. We may have James Clapper coming up. We finally now, of course, have the Joe DeGenova grand conspiracy investigation and much, much more to come. I believe that Todd Blanche, since he no longer has to worry about a radical Senate coming after him, stopping him from doing his job, there's nothing they can do. Todd Blanche is the Attorney General. Todd Blanche can now direct the investigations that need to be done. I can only hope that's exactly what he's going to do. I believe that he will. This, of course, was a party line vote. It was 50-49. I think you had Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski both vote against him. They were the only no votes on the Republican side. Mitch McConnell, of course, is convalescing in his coffin. And the Senate also passed a short-term government funding bill so that there won't be a shutdown on October 1st. But they did not pass the Save America Act. Todd Blanche responded on X by saying, "I am deeply honored by the trust and confidence President Trump has placed in me to lead the Department of Justice as our great nation's 88th Attorney General. I am grateful to the Senate for staying late to complete this process. To the dedicated public servants of the Justice Department, thank you for your work each day to uphold the law and keep our country safe. God bless America." Chuck Schumer, of course, had to respond on X saying, "Senate Republicans have handed Trump an excuse on a silver platter to keep up his pervasive, breathtaking corruption. Todd Blanche has no intention of stopping Trump's corruption. He advanced his career enabling it." Honey, is there something you need to tell me? No? Okay. All right. Now, let's actually watch Todd Blanche being sworn in. You can see that right here.
I do solemnly swear.
I do solemnly swear.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
That I take this obligation freely.
That I take this obligation freely.
Without any mental reservation.
Without any mental reservation.
Or purpose of evasion.
Or purpose of evasion.
And that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter.
And that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office of which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Yay!
All right, confirmed over the weekend, actually sworn in today. If anybody over on YouTube has any questions about my opinion of Haiti or the non-functional governments on the African continent, I suggest that you watch Frank Zanu from Project Rethink on YouTube. He is a Black African academic who lives here now in the United States of America. And he talks about all of the problems that face these nations that are run by blacks, these former colonial nations. And my opinion is drawn from the lived experience and also my own personal research into the ongoing and pervasive corruption that we see in these countries. So, yeah, definitely check out Frank Zanu, Project Rethink, and you might see some things that are uncomfortable truths. But they are truths nonetheless. So let me say thank you to Principled Enigma. Previously, I referred to flock cameras, but the state generally applies against complaints on many other technologies as well. In other words, if you knew how it was designed, you would not like it. Yes, I mean, flock is emblematic of the larger surveillance state that we have in the United States of America. But it is the worst example of how bad that has gotten. Denise Ann says she's right. Immigration reform is needed. We need to have much stricter guidelines for people who enter our country. I agree with you. All right. Now, let's talk about Dr. Anthony Fauci. Last week, I reported that Ron Johnson was able to secure Anthony Fauci's cell phone. Well, over the weekend, he and his team went through that cell phone, and they have already found some very disturbing things. First and foremost, case in point, major text messages that were sent by Dr. Anthony Fauci confirm that privately he knew the dangers of the COVID-19 vaccines. He spoke about a second COVID vaccine dose being associated with miscarriage in the first trimester. Let's hear Ron Johnson talking about these findings early this morning.
Miscarriage in the first trimester. What do you make of what we're learning here?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on and thanks for covering this. So we obviously have his phone. We've downloaded it. And we're going to carefully go through this to protect people's personal information. But I thought we had to release this right away because this is, I think, major news. Anthony Fauci, in a text exchange with Vivek Murthy and Rochelle Walensky, the CDC director, they're talking about the COVID injection and having pregnant women take it. And in the middle of that text exchange, I think the key text is where Anthony Fauci is talking about the fact that the second dose creates a greater cytokine storm, additional information that could have an impact on increased miscarriages in the first trimester. Now, to add to that, in June of 2021, Tom Shimabukuro, a bunch of other people published a grossly misleading study in the New England Journal of Medicine, where they were looking at 827 confirmed pregnancies. There were 104 miscarriages. They call them spontaneous abortions, but we refer to those as miscarriages. 104 divided by 827 would imply about a 12.6% miscarriage rate, which is quite high for confirmed pregnancies. I talked to Dr. James Thorpe, who says generally around 3%, so it's already 4 times as high, but within the realm of confirmed and unconfirmed pregnancies, okay? So they put this study out there, but what they don't reveal, they do, but they don't account for it, is that 700 of those 827 women took the injection in their third trimester. Now, spontaneous abortions occur before 20 weeks. Third trimester starts after 28, so the relevant denominator would have been 127. So you would have had 124 miscarriages out of 127 of the women who got the injection in the first or second trimesters. That's an 82%.
Wow.
82% miscarriage rate. That is shocking news. Okay, and that's been known for quite some time. But again, the federal health agencies weren't highlighting that.
82% miscarriage rate. Dr. Anthony Fauci knew about it, and they recommended to pregnant women to take the shot. The floor is yours. Says, I am a Black American in Queens, New York. Haitians are all around me, and let me tell you, they don't like Black Americans. Used to brag all the time about how they were never slaves, but Black Americans were, and they think they're better than us. I dealt with that shit my whole life. GTFO. Yes. And, just to put a finer point on what I was saying earlier, the problems that have essentially stopped Haiti from developing and many of these former colonial nations, the problem is cultural. Okay, like Frank Zanu was talking about African nations and how they were handed all of this infrastructure, working railroads, government buildings, et cetera, et cetera. And take a look at South Africa, okay? When apartheid ended, the blacks of South Africa were handed a fully functional government and a system with everything was working. Now it's quite literally, it's a hellhole. I mean, they don't have working power. They don't have clean water. They don't have infrastructure. I reported on that girl who was snatched off the street the other day. The problem is cultural. So, yes, there are issues that have not been dealt with, but the issues are inherent in the deep cultural fabric of those peoples. And in Haiti, yeah, obviously these people, they have this sort of holier-than-thou attitude, and they come here to the United States perfectly comfortable taking advantage of the kindness of the United States. And for them to look at Black Americans and say, we're better than you because we weren't slaves, that's such bullshit. Filter Dog says, Fauci knew the death jab was an abortion shot, but said it was safe. Yes, sir. Better lately, homie. What a good thing to see in the chat. He says, great reporting as usual, Zach. Thanks for all you do to keep us informed. Hey, man, thank you so much. Make sure you're following Better Lately over there on Pilled, you guys. It's good to see you, Holmes. Luann V, thank you for the fleet, Luann. She says, here's for your Schumer impersonation. Not your best, but still funny. Yes, I know. I didn't really evaluate the impression before I did it, but I just went with it. Now, we're not done talking about Anthony Fauci. We have more text messages from Anthony Fauci that reveal his conversation with Biden-era U.S. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy, who also was aware that these COVID shots were essentially abortion shots. He responded to Dr. Anthony Fauci's concern about the COVID vaccine in pregnant women. He added, I've been hearing concern about the mRNA causing mutations in the developing fetus as well. It's not merely that babies were being spontaneously aborted. The ones who were not aborted were having their DNA mutated. We have no idea what the full ramifications will be for the children who were given this vaccine through their mother as they sat in utero. Think about the damage, the potential damage that could have been done to these babies. We are not going to learn about this for many, many years. Absolutely disgusting that they allowed these women to go through it. Now, the mandated and doctor-recommended COVID-19 shot for pregnant women was, again, essentially an abortion shot. And this is now proven. We saw this happening in real time, how many spontaneous miscarriages were happening. Us here in this audience, we were aware of this. But think about so many women out there who took the advice of their doctors and their medical professionals and just went ahead and did what they were told to do. The authors claimed a miscarriage rate in the paper of only 12.6%, but as Ron Johnson said, it was actually an 82% miscarriage rate in women who were vaccinated during that first trimester. This is entirely consistent with the 81% miscarriage rate noted in Pfizer's 5.3.6 post-market data, and these figures mirror the effects of chemical abortion drugs. You could basically just go get a COVID vaccine if you didn't want your baby. Okay, you don't need to actually take the RU486 or the mifepristone. You can just get yourself a COVID shot, and then you'd never have to worry about, again, SONS, all of the psychological damage that comes as a result of it. Now, considering the fact that my own AG, James Uthmeier, is currently investigating Dr. Anthony Fauci for the crimes he committed while he was running the NIH and the NIAID and having these private conversations about the dangers of these genetic manipulation shots. Well, James Uthmeier is paying attention, and he said these new text messages revealed by Senator Ron Johnson admitting he knew the vax would cause miscarriage is evidence of Anthony Fauci committing fraud.
Yeah, this is more explicit evidence of deception and his defrauding of the American people, especially these pregnant women, these moms. I want to thank Senator Johnson for continuing to be a bulldog in the search for truth and accountability. This is just one back and forth text message thread from the thousands and thousands that we're going to be going through here. But again, a lot of people were injured and suffered, and it wasn't from an accident. It appears to be deliberate, dishonest messaging where Dr. Fauci, he was worried about one thing but pushed another on the American people.
I mean, the American people are hearing this now, and they're seeing these texts, and they're wondering.
I want to ask you in the chat, because I don't have any people in my life who are still like Fauci lovers. And, even throughout all this, I didn't really have anybody. I don't have a lot of people outside of this right here. So I want to ask you guys, for those of you who have family members, who have maybe coworkers who were like, trust the science, dude, mask up, go get your shots. For those people, if they still exist today, are they still having that same affectation? Are they still pretending that Dr. Anthony Fauci was this paragon of scientific virtue? Or have they learned about Fauci's private conversations and now they are extremely disturbed. Are they talking to you about it? Enter user, I'm so sorry. He says, Fauci killed my mother. I can't tell you how many people I know that have stories exactly like that. So yeah, what are these people now saying to you guys? Because I know that you guys have, big families, a lot of you out there.
How much more of this misguidance
Oh, Boxing Cat says the nurse in my doctor's office is his cousin. I'm assuming you mean Fauci's cousin? Oh, or is it Uthmeyer's cousin?
it is, could be out there as Congress continues to dig through these texts.
Yeah, I think we all have a lot more questions. We are certainly going to dig in here in Florida. We're excited to work with the Senate and the Department of Justice. We've issued subpoenas. We'll be following up with more subpoenas as we gather additional evidence from, the cell phone and other potential devices. But at the end of the day, we need to know how widespread the deception went. All the while, we know he was pushing for fame and fortune, book deals, awards, making millions of dollars on the side while people are suffering. So there's clearly a deception here that people suffered from. We'll keep seeking accountability.
Oh, Searle74 says, yes, Zach, I sit next to a liberal DSA Fauci lover at work. Oh, I'm so sorry. Anytime you've got those people at work, they are so presumptuous. Like, they come up to you, and if you haven't explicitly stated that you disagree with them politically, they automatically assume that you are just like them, and they just bitch about all of that guy. So the good news is, guys, and I want you to know, we have the death penalty down here in Florida. And from where I sit, this is just another damning piece of evidence to show that Anthony Fauci is responsible for yet even more untold death and destruction. Boba Finu says, and still, I'm wondering if there was supposed to be something else about that. But Boba Finu says, my wife, friend at work, mother, and 2 sisters are gone. Oh, well, buddy, I'm so sorry, man. I hate hearing that. I mean, it's like, those people were probably like very pro vaccine and just, capitulation about this whole thing. And we've lost so many people. I mean, I don't know that I've said this before. I don't even know that it's possible to like really determine how many deaths came as a result of the lies of Dr. Anthony Fauci. All right, now, we have good news here. In a recent primary election in Indiana, this was in the Indiana State Senate race, a woman, Paula Copenhaver, who was actually endorsed by President Trump, has just been found through a recount to have defeated State Senator Spencer Deary. Paula won by 3 votes. Now, Deary, the man who she just beat, opposed redistricting, and he was leading her by 3 votes until they did the recount, and then they determined that actually Paula won by 3 votes. So a 6-vote swing. This right here is exactly why I cast a ballot every single time, because they cannot fake every election. They do not have the resources to steal every race that's out there. And there could have easily been 6 people who decided that they weren't going to bother because they don't trust the election system. I don't trust the election system, but I'm definitely going to vote in every single instance that I possibly can. Counterinsurgent says, I'm a nurse and I see Medicare patients every day. About 70% are not getting vaccinated after succumbing to the fear at the first. 30% are in double-digit boosters. Oh, God. Well, that's good to hear, at least, that people have woken up. Lee Walden says, unfortunately, I do have some that are still in the dark and will not admit that they were fooled. Well, perhaps after learning that Dr. Anthony Fauci was aware that babies were being spontaneously aborted as a result of taking the second shot, maybe they will come around. All right, so great news in Indiana there. Okay. Amber says, yes, my mother is a retired RN. She's still all about the vaccines. She was angry with me for not taking the death jabs. She has heart issues, as my sister does. super left. I think she hates me for being a Christian conservative, but I still pray for her. She's just been fooled. That's all you can do, you know? And this is, again, you know, a great thing to remember, you guys, because over the years, I've seen it in the chat so many times. Why won't people listen to me? You know, if they would just open their ears, then maybe I could save them. Nobody is going to change their mind until they are ready to do it. Nobody is going to accept the truth until they're ready to do it. So all you can do is give them the tools and they can use them. You just sit back and pray, and that's all you can do, you guys. All right, so wonderful news. America First Legal has just taken their fight to fix that botched 2020 census to the Supreme Court. Now, we've been talking about the failed and fake results of the 2020 census since it happened, but they have taken their landmark challenge against this deeply flawed census straight to the U.S. Supreme Court, and they are demanding that the justices reverse a lower court's dismissal so they can force accountability for a count that systematically undercounted red states while padding blue ones, which, of course, gave inordinate amounts of representation to the blue states and less than should have to the red states. So on August 7th, AFL, which you may or may not know, was co-founded by President Trump's senior advisor, Stephen Miller, filed this jurisdictional statement with the court. The group is asking the High Court to hear their case and overturn the U.S. District Court for the Middle District of Florida's ruling that initially dismissed the suit. You had a divided three-judge panel throw this case out in July. They claimed that the plaintiffs lacked standing and that the challenge came too late. Judge Stephen Merriday issued a blistering dissent, and he said if the census and the vote are not right, nothing that follows from that vote is right. It's like you buy a lemon from a dealership, you drive it home, and then as soon as you drive it home, the car blows up or it just stops working, and you call the dealership, and they say, yeah, sorry, buddy, you know, you bought the car. It's not our fault. If the census was done incorrectly and numbers were apportioned incorrectly and the electoral votes that get apportioned are also incorrect, we have standing because this affects every single citizen of the United States of America. We don't have some technical accounting dispute when it comes to these numbers. The 2020 census happened during the Biden-Harris administration's early influence after President Trump left office. They completely abandoned the Constitution's clear command of an actual enumeration. They counted illegal aliens. The Census Bureau leaned heavily on statistical imputation and a series of other gimmicks to just guess in a way that basically favored Democrats. They filled in missing people with made-up data, and they injected noise under the guise of privacy. So what was the result? Well, Florida was undercounted by about 3.5%, roughly 760,000 people. You had a number of other red and purple states who took similar hits, but for some strange reason, the blue states were overcounted. It's almost like they were cheating. And they were. They knew exactly what they were doing because those distortions directly translated into lost congressional seats and lost electoral college votes for those Republican-leaning states. Florida already is a powerhouse of growth and support for President Trump. They got shorted in the representation that they should have earned because we had people moving here. Blue strongholds in the Northeast and elsewhere, they kept or they gained seats that they didn't deserve. People moved out of that place, and what moved in their place were illegal aliens. AFL has repeatedly documented that the Census Bureau's own data showed nearly 11 million people as being imputed. This is almost double the figures from 2010 when real Americans in growing red states were just not counted. The Constitution calls for an actual enumeration of the people, so that way Congress can accurately allocate representatives among the states. The Census Bureau failed in 2020 to complete this count. Emily Percival is the senior legal counsel at America First Legal. She continued by saying, "We are asking the Supreme Court to step in to hold the Bureau to this constitutional standard. Americans deserve to have their voices heard through accurate representation in Congress." Now, the lawsuit has long targeted the Census Bureau's use of group quarters imputation. This is especially for college dorms that were emptied by COVID. Earlier, differential privacy schemes, fabricated population counts, and shifted power to where they wanted it to rest. These are methods that added fictitious people in certain areas while shortchanging and not counting people in other areas. This is the type of statistical sampling that federal law actually prohibits for the apportionment. And the practical effort that was given as a result of this favored Democrat-heavy states, and it diluted voting powers for citizens in places like Florida, Texas, and other red areas. This is the same pattern of institutional bias against the America First agenda that we have seen time and time again. The same bureaucratic apparatus that resisted citizenship questions and President Trump's efforts to exclude illegal aliens from apportionment numbers delivered a census that entrenched blue state advantages for an entire decade. Citizens of this country are the only ones who should be counted. Illegal aliens should never be counted. So now AFL is forcing this issue to go to the highest court in the land, arguing the district court's order effectively makes any meaningful challenge to census failures nearly impossible. Actually, though, Congress created avenues so that we could do exactly that, and that is what AFL is moving forward with. Now, let's talk about Congress. Let's talk about the Senate. Now, Randy Fine, who is my congressman, although I don't agree with him on everything, the strongest contender against him is Dan Bilzerian. Dan Bilzerian, in my humble opinion, is a clown. He said on Twitter that President Trump is a pedophile who needs to be removed from office. But in all of the mailers that he sends out, he acts like he's President Trump's #1 supporter. He's not somebody that I take seriously. However, there are other people running against Randy Fine, but they just don't have the visibility. Now, the reason I don't like Randy Fine is because he's been Israel first in a lot of his decisions. He's done some distasteful things online, but he has been, and I've said this before, a reliable yes vote for President Trump on the issues that he supports. Until, of course, he voted against the Save America Act. And that was because he wanted somebody fired from the Trump administration who he didn't perceive as being Israel first. That's a problem, but either way, he talks about two methods that the Senate can use to pass the Save America Act, and that's what's important here. He says we've got these two issues. Number one, we put the Save America Act in the reconciliation bill that we sent to the Senate. They did. However, the Senate did not do it. That would only take 50 votes. So there's the one way to get it done. The other way is we attach the Save America Act to something even more popular, the idea that members of Congress can't insider trade. We did that, and we not only got every Republican vote, we got a dozen Democrats in the House. It was the first time we've ever seen a Democrat vote for Save America. So maybe that's what they try in the Senate. Can't insider trade plus Save America. They could have done that. However, they chose not to do that because John Thune is a rhino, and I think he is a traitor to the United States of America. Like I said, they stayed up all night. They argued about what they could or could not do, and John Thune ignored all of the various procedural methodologies that he could have enforced to get the core pieces of the Save America Act placed into the legislative record. So they have effectively gone on vacation for the next 37 days, and even worse than that, they have once again scheduled a whole bunch of pro forma sessions so that President Trump will be unable to get any of his recess appointments in. President Trump will be the first president in history to have his party controlling the House and the Senate and to be systematically denied the right to get recess appointments through. So instead of doing what the American people wanted, John Thune has instead said, "C'est la vie, Washington, D.C. Me and Mitch McConnell and Tom Tillis and John Cornyn and Bill Cassidy are going to head off into the sunset and hang off on the beaches of Morocco for the next 37 days. I don't know where he's going. But these 11 pro forma sessions are what stops President Trump from being able to get any business done while they're out of town. So the first session was held this morning at 10 a.m. under the schedule approved before they fled Washington, D.C. You have a lone senator who will periodically open and close the chamber and no legislative business will be done. For those who don't know, pro forma session is a scam. It's a fake session where you have a single swamp creature walk into an empty chamber, gavel in for 30 seconds, gavel out, no votes, no debate, no work. These are the 11 pro forma sessions. Now, what will be interesting, if on any one of these days you have a senator who doesn't show up, or who does the brave thing and decides not to gavel in. If that happens, it has to be done every 3 days or something like that. If that happens and they don't show up, President Trump will immediately be able to do his recess appointments. You've got August 10th, 13th, 17th, 20th, 24th, 27th, 31st, and then again September 1st, 4th, 8th, and 10th. Now, the Supreme Court's 2014 ruling in NLRB versus Noel Canning held that these brief sessions count as genuine Senate sessions when the chamber retains the ability to conduct business. Recesses lasting fewer than 10 days are generally too short to activate the president's appointment authority. So the schedule basically runs out the clock. It stops it from ever reaching the 10 days. It's a procedural barricade that was erected by President Trump's own Republican-controlled Senate to stop the Republican president from having his people put into the positions. We're only 2 years into the administration, and they do not want President Trump to be able to get his people in. This is basically just to stop the president from being able to use his power. People like to think that the president is the most powerful job in Washington, D.C., but it is actively the least powerful job in the United States government at this point. All right. Now, why is it a good thing, though? Because, as I said in the title of the show, John Thune, by not passing the Save America Act, has effectively created the environment for President Trump to declare a national security emergency with regard to our elections. They have failed to pass the Save America, which means that we can't clean the voter rolls, which means we can't implement voter ID and proof of citizenship before people start casting ballots. And that has already borne some pretty wicked fruit in the state of Michigan. Late last week, James O'Keefe, after the primary in Michigan, found during a undercover investigation that voter fraud was taking place. This is the same voter fraud that Harmeet Dillon warned Jocelyn Benson, the Secretary of State in Michigan, about. This is the same voter fraud that Jocelyn Benson and other election officials were warned would get them criminally prosecuted if the federal government got the evidence to show that it was happening. Now, on Election Day, James O'Keefe went to Michigan. He was hoping to expose voter fraud, which is obviously happening on a regular basis. I bet, and we also know that the DOJ had election monitors there, so we don't even know what they found. However, in the state of Michigan, James O'Keefe and Yehuda Miller got together on this one, and they were able to identify a couple of hot spots in Detroit. They also found some non-citizens that have previously been identified by the Gateway Pundit. These are non-citizens who are actually criminals who are also voting in Michigan elections. So the U.S. has been unable to deport some of the worst offenders. In this instance, a convicted rapist, Afshin Masheli. This is an Iranian citizen. In the video that James O'Keefe did, he mentions the Gateway Pundit's reporting and this worst of the worst non-citizens who continue to vote in the state of Michigan. And he features Mr. Masheli. And when you go to checkmyvote.com, which is a handy-dandy online service that is directly tied to Michigan's voter rolls, it turns out that Mr. Masheli voted in 3 of Michigan's federal and state elections. So in O'Keefe's undercover video, Masheli can be seen speaking with an undercover journalist at his front door. And like a typical foreign criminal, he arrogantly admits that he was getting ready to vote in Michigan's primary election later that day. You might remember his face. I've featured it here on the channel before because he's a sex criminal. In addition to going to Afshin Masheli's home to interview him about voting illegally in Michigan's elections, James O'Keefe highlighted yet another non-citizen, also from Iran, on the same DHS worst of the worst list, currently incarcerated, but he is still on the voter rolls, and he is still shown as an active voter. from a mosque in Farmington Hills, Michigan. O'Keefe also went undercover to show that election officials in Dearborn totally agreed to allow an alleged non-citizen, Fazalaha Haritosh, who, according to O'Keefe, is currently in prison for child sex crimes. They allowed him to vote. That video is pretty revelatory, and it is quite clear that Michigan's voter rolls have not been cleaned, and it wouldn't even matter because they don't care about those voter rolls being clean. They want these people to vote. Let's take a look.
Is it okay if I'm not a U.S. citizen? It's okay for me to vote?
All I know is you're registered to vote here.
As long as I'm registered, I can vote, right?
Yes.
Perfect.
OMG has discovered multiple non-citizens from Iran registered to vote for the 2026 Michigan primary elections.
Now, in case you couldn't hear that because the volume was turned down, the person at the polls tells the poll worker, I'm not a citizen, but as long as I'm on the voter rolls, I can vote. And he says, sure, I don't care. It's that poll worker's job to make sure that non-citizens do not cast a ballot. But Michigan is obviously totally corrupted. And that's fine. Accelerate. I said this before. Let these people vote in the state of Michigan because they've been put on notice by the Department of Justice. There is proof positive that non-citizens and criminal non-citizens are voting in Michigan federal elections. That is a crime. Jocelyn Benson, it was your responsibility as the top election official in the state of Michigan to make sure this didn't happen. You were warned. You were told. All of your staff was warned. All of your staff was told. All of the city clerks, all of the county clerks, everybody should have been aware. And you let it happen. So I hope you go to prison.
The local police told us that this is an abandoned building, September 8th. Hello. Do you guys know if this is an abandoned building? Yeah. When's the last time people lived here? You just drank here? Both of these non-citizens from Iran, a country we're at war with, are also on the Department of Homeland Security's worst of the worst list.
Last name, please. Last name, H-A-R-I-T-A-S-H. First name, Fazlallah.
Yep, this is the right place. One of them is still incarcerated for felony child sex crimes. Yet another reason that it is illegal for him to vote.
I'm gonna catch this guy. All this, I'm gonna run off time.
You can see, we got the cars over there with the rims were being looked at. These guys are staring at us. What's more, Michelle admits into a hidden camera on primary day in Dearborn, Michigan on August 4th that he's about to vote.
Your name is Mr. Afshin Michelle, right?
That is correct.
Are you interested to vote?
Yeah, we're going a little.
So I have a
Now, I would just like to mention that there have already been numerous federal crimes that have been captured by James O'Keefe and his people, and they have been handed over to the Department of Justice, and they have resulted in people being indicted. I can only assume, given the attention that was placed on Michigan and their reluctance to hand over the voter rolls to stop this particular crime from happening, this is now going to move forward.
felony, I'm a sex offender. As long as my name is there.
If your name is here, you can.
Show this. I want to see this happening, and I want these people to be prosecuted. Now, on September 11th, 2024, 2 months before the election, Michigan's Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, who is now the Democratic candidate for the governor of Michigan, she will be running in that gubernatorial race against John James, who is the Republican candidate endorsed by President Trump. She appeared before the U.S. House Committee on House Administration with other secretaries of state, and she testified. During that testimony, she insisted that the idea of illegal aliens voting in our elections is highly unlikely. They always say this. We're doing everything we can to ensure that non-citizens are not able to vote and that only U.S. citizens vote in our elections, and it's working. There's no evidence that non-citizens are voting. If they were, It would be easy to prove since voting records are public. And despite numerous organizations spending a lot of money trying to convince people that non-citizens are voting, none of these groups have actually been able to provide any evidence of that. You are eating your words now. She denied that illegal aliens or non-citizens are voting in Michigan's elections. She said it's almost, if not entirely impossible, only U.S. citizens can vote in our elections. She said with a straight face, there's no evidence that non-citizens are voting. There's ample evidence that only U.S. citizens are voting in our elections. And the reality is we have so many checks in place with our decentralized election systems that we can catch it if anyone attempts in any way to cast a ballot or if they're an ineligible voter. Well, that's obviously a lie. Survey says that's a lie. Although there doesn't appear to be a record of anybody being punished for voting illegally during Jocelyn Benson's term, she warned we hold people accountable. It's a significant risk, especially for non-citizens that try to break the law in that regard. Well, these people have voted and nothing has happened to them, but now it's a federal case. She used some ridiculous study to back up her point to that it's impossible for non-citizens to vote. She said there's been a study that says there's more people on the space station than who have tried to vote illegally nationwide. Not true. Certainly, it is infinitesimal when it does happen, but we catch it. They've never caught it because they've never actually looked. I won't bore you with Jocelyn Benson's interview. Why is she being allowed to run her own election in November when it's clear that Michigan voter rolls are corrupted? I've told you guys before. I think this is a honey trap for Jocelyn Benson to find herself in a position where she has allowed people to break the law. How many non-citizens do you think the DOJ is going to find when they take a look at this most recent primary election? We've got, at minimum, 2 right here that were caught by James O'Keefe and O'Keefe Media Group. Now, in a tweet on Tuesday, O'Keefe shared a teaser about this video. He said, "I'm here in Detroit, Michigan on primary day." Then he left anyone who cares about exposing election fraud in Detroit on the edge of their seats. He said, "We have caught what you've always suspected regarding voter fraud on camera, both the documents and the admissions." And now that information is being handed over to the good people at the Department of Justice. Now, you might remember previously, O'Keefe went to Michigan and he dressed like Eminem, and he said that his name was Marshall Bruce Mathers III, and they gave him Eminem's ballot. So there are clearly a lot of problems. These people need to be caught. Now, let's take a look at MS Now freaking out after all of this is starting to break. Their national security reporter, David Rode, he seemed to express shock and horror that the Trump DOJ is trying to make sure illegal aliens don't vote in our elections. He refers to illegals voting as a Trumpian conspiracy theory, even though last week it was actually revealed in New Jersey that 6,600 illegal aliens were on the voter rolls and at least 400 of them voted only in a one-year period. That window into his particular thought process is a larger view into the mind of the left. Just as we heard Jocelyn Benson saying, illegal aliens don't vote. There's no evidence to show they vote. Even when you have the evidence, they simply can't see it. It's like a colorblind person looking at a green shirt and a blue shirt, and they're both gray. I can't see anything. Or looking at people and saying, I'm blind to color. So anyways, David Rode, actually, we may have a clip of this. Hold on. He's so freaked out that illegal aliens are not being allowed to vote.
The midterm elections are coming. The Justice Department.
This has been your big thing.
The Justice Department sent election observers to Michigan for the primary last week. And before that happened, they informed election clerks across the country that they would be arrested and prosecuted federally if they allowed non-citizens to vote. That is an astonishingly rare thing that happens in the U.S. It's a giant, frankly, Trumpian conspiracy theory that there's all these people voting. So
it's a conspiracy, all right, but it's not a theory. It actually happens.
Whether he's acting or not, it's just not acceptable that that's how, and nothing happened. They sort of watched, but there's tremendous worry about what will the FBI do on Election Day? What will the Attorney General do?
Well, it doesn't need to be on Election Day. All we needed to do was catch these people doing it And that's exactly what we've done. These people said that 2020 was the most secure election in the history of the world. But either way, it's now been shown to not be the case. All right, now let's talk a little bit more about immigration. All right, so Juicy Star 1908, a great follow. She is talking about the impact of some changes that have taken place on Jobs Now PR. Right here, your gateway to hidden job postings big companies don't want you to see. I have featured their work on here before. Currently, H-1B visa holders, due to the changes in the H-1B system, they have passed the labor market test. They're now scared of getting a promotion or changing roles. Because of those changes to the H-1B system, they would need to restart the perm process from scratch. That includes a couple of key things. The prevailing wage determination, the LMT, and the perm process have to be done with the Department of Labor. So Jobs Now PR went viral in summer 2025, bringing the attention to all of these jobs that were essentially being hidden from Americans. So now Jobs Now PR has put together a list of all of these jobs that are available around the country, which are actually not publicly visible to people. There are 233 jobs posted right now for data scientists. So if you're interested in getting a job in this field, you can go ahead and sign up for it. But take a look at this post from H1B on Reddit. I'm on H-1B, and I've had my perm process underway for almost 3 years. My perm was filed for a data scientist position and is currently pending with the Department of Labor. I'm considering an internal machine learning engineer role. There is some overlap with data scientist work, but the MLE role has more software engineering and production responsibilities. I asked my employer's immigration lawyers about the potential move. They said that if the new role is materially different from the perm sponsored role, I would need to restart the perm process, and I could not use the existing perm for the I-140. They mentioned that a promotion or natural progression from the perm role can generally be treated differently. So for people who have dealt with something similar, how is a role change move typically treated for perm purposes? You got to start all over again because it's not the job that you were invited here to do. Is there any legitimate way to make such an internal move while preserving the existing perm priority date, or would a new perm generally be required if the MLE role is considered materially different? Would especially appreciate experiences for anybody who has actually made a similar transition while on H-1B. Well, you would not be able to do it. You have to start the process all over again, and more than likely you might end up getting sent back home. All right, take a look at this. This is a case of an Indian man who killed his girlfriend. He entered the United States on an F1, that's a tourist visa, in 2024. He strangled his girlfriend after she planned to break up with him because he had a history of domestic violence. Once he killed her, he tried to flee the country, and it looks like he was arrested on a flight that was heading back to India.
The victim after she reportedly planned to break up with him over his history of domestic violence. Authorities say he then tried to flee the country, boarding a flight bound for India with a layover in Germany where he was arrested. He now faces felony charges on first-degree murder and kidnapping and is awaiting extradition to Arizona. The search continues for an American the victim.
Oh, that's too bad. Don't kill Americans and don't come here and stick around illegally. All right, now, here's a little bit more in-depth information. So, this suspect was charged with murdering his girlfriend in Tucson, Arizona. Then he tried to flee the country. He's an Indian national. He was admitted to the, F1 is a student, not a tourist visa. And he flew into LAX on January 8th of 2024. 20-year-old Varun Bachagari has been charged with first-degree murder after Tucson police say he strangled his 19-year-old girlfriend, Julissa Salazar, at an off-campus event near the University of Arizona. Unknown if she was a student at U of A. After the murder on Thursday, Bachagari tried to flee back to India, flew out of Houston, connected in Germany, where he was arrested by local police after notification from the FBI attaché in Germany. The FBI is now working to get him back into Arizona. So, KOLD, the local news in Tucson, reports that he had been a student at the University of Arizona, but the school had expelled him after a fight, and his girlfriend was about to break up with him due to his history of domestic violence and a prior sexual assault. Then she was killed. Poor girl. The outlet reports that Bachagari stole her phone and credit cards after the murders and sent a series of text messages to her mother pretending to be her, which led to a welfare check request and the discovery of her body. According to federal records, up until his arrest for the murder, Bachagari maintained his legal status in the U.S., and his student visa had not yet been terminated, despite the fact that he was already expelled from U of A, which would have been a violation of the terms of that visa. So if the university had done their job and if this visa would have been revoked, perhaps his girlfriend might still be alive and she would be able to live her life here in the United States. We have another situation. A non-citizen who came here and was on an expired visa was able to get her nursing license approved in the state of Maine, where we know that they have major problems. She entered the country on May 14th, 2024. The visa expired November 13th of 2024, and she failed to depart before her visa expired. So she's in violation of her immigration laws, but she still works in Maine as a nurse on an expired visa. Let's take a listen.
John with the Maine Wire, Thursday afternoon, about 2:40. I just went to Department of Health and Human Services and asked the very nice lady who helped me, and I stressed that she was very kind, very nice. I said, who validates a nurse's immigration status up here in Augusta? If somebody is here on an expired visa, does somebody in this building, is it their job or their responsibility to verify that the nurses that are working and taking care of our loved ones, they're here legally? Or is that a federal government issue? Or should it be that the federal government is collaborating with, the state officials? After waiting some short period of time, I found out that everybody's working from home today, so nobody's here to answer your questions. Well, I've seen this movie before. I've left my contact information. I'm anxiously waiting for somebody to give me a call back, but that would be the first time anybody ever gives me a call back from DHSS. Pretty simple question, but the biggest takeaway from today in Augusta, the governor's not in. The governor's spokesperson's not in. The halls of Augusta were very, very vacant. As I waited here at DHSS, I was told that a majority of the people work from home on Thursdays and Fridays. So here's the question. We have rampant fraud in the state. Over 150 children have died under DHSS's care under the Mills administration. Infrastructure problems galore, understaffed police departments, and every time I come to Augusta, nobody's working. So is Augusta government working for you? Probably something to think about when you vote in November. Check back with the Maine Wire for more updates. I'm John Featherstone.
All right. Oh, here, I guess that we have a little bit of information about this particular nurse.
For those unfamiliar with the case, this is the woman here. She is a foreigner who came to America on a visa, and that visa expired. So here are the dates here. She entered the country on May 14th.
She's from Zambia.
2024 on a visa that was set to expire November 13th, 2024. She failed to deport, and so she's in violation of our immigration laws, and she was actually picked up by ICE. But the thing is, she had put in an asylum application. However, that asylum application had not been granted. So how did she get a nursing license, being that she is a non-citizen without a proper visa? In Maine, where this took place, to be issued a license as a nurse, you do not have to have U.S. citizenship, if you can believe it. That is wild in itself. But this is a woman who is a non-citizen who did not have legal status, and she had only put in an application for asylum. She did not get granted asylum. So her pending asylum application hadn't been granted. Correct.
So she's got no claim to remain here, but she never should have been granted a nursing license if she was not here with the requisite visa to allow her to work. We have another circumstance that took place outside the Portland ICE facility last week. A Somali immigrant killed somebody, and he blamed ICE for it. His name is Mahmoud Saeed Ali. He's 42. He's from Somalia. He lists Mogadishu as his hometown. He was arrested on Saturday morning on felony second-degree murder and the unlawful use of a weapon. He's being held in the Multnomah County Jail. So he may be getting out pretty quickly. But The victim was a 41-year-old by the name of Anwar A. Osman of Portland. He was shot multiple times around 4:10 a.m. on Tuesday near the intersection of South Bancroft Street and South Macadam Avenue that's directly in front of that ICE facility. Osman's vehicle then rolled down the hill and crashed into a building, and officers found him unconscious with gunshot wounds, and he was pronounced dead at the scene. Now, police said these two guys knew each other. Ali fled after the shooting. Portland police used their special emergency reaction team and crisis negotiation team to take Ali into custody after locating him Friday evening. Authorities have stated the incident is not related to any ICE activity beyond its proximity to the building, but he tried to blame ICE for the shooting, and it looks like it is two Somali on Somali. It's Somali on Somali crime. All right. We also have a case of a Pakistani illegal alien. He was charged with breaking into a disabled woman's home and attempting to rape her in another sanctuary state, Massachusetts. Kasir Ali, this time 39, of Brockton, Massachusetts, was arrested by the East Bridgewater Police on August 5th. On August 2nd, while he was delivering medicine for a pharmaceutical service, he entered the home of this woman with severe mobility issues. She uses a wheelchair, and without her consent, he repeatedly touched her inappropriately. He faces charges of assault with the intent to commit rape, 3 counts of assault and battery on an elderly or disabled person, 2 counts of indecent assault and battery on an elderly or disabled person, indecent exposure, and breaking and entering in the daytime. He is being held on $10,000 bail, but DHS says he is an illegal alien from Pakistan who was released into the country by the Biden regime back in 2022. Maybe this time they'll hold on to him since he tried to rape a woman in a wheelchair. Need to pick this guy up and get rid of him. All right, now, a couple of stories for you on teachers behaving badly. A Kentucky middle school teacher was arrested this past Friday because the authorities accused her of grooming a student. Spoken about this on so many occasions, it seems like we have a strange preponderance of female teachers who are engaging in inappropriate sexual relationships with students. Not just female teachers, but you know, years ago, it used to be that it would just be male teachers you would hear about. Now it's like a crazy amount of female teachers. So Sadie Flores, a 25-year-old teacher at Graves County Middle School, has been charged with grooming, according to a August 7th Graves County Sheriff's Office press release. The allegations were reported to the school district, which then notified the sheriff's office. She was interviewed by GCSO detectives before she was arrested, and she is currently in custody at an out-of-county detention center. An investigation is ongoing, and detectives have conducted interviews. They have seized all of her records, her electronic devices. Under Kentucky House Bill 4, which just took effect on July 15th, grooming a minor is a misdemeanor. The charge is upgraded to a felony if a minor is under 12 years old, but under the law, teachers are required to participate in training that is aimed at preventing grooming and sexual misconduct. I wouldn't even imagine that they would need the training. This is supposed to be something that everybody is aware of. You're just not supposed to do. Hadley Purcell is the director of community impact at Lotus. It's a children's advocacy and sexual violence resource center located in Kentucky. She reacted to the bill's passing. She said grooming is a lot of time and entryway, a starting point for child sexual abuse and exploitation. She defined grooming as if an adult is looking for an opportunity to have a child isolated, if they are buying that child gifts, if they're having private communications with that child without the parent's knowledge. Graves County School Superintendent Matt Matting issued a statement via the same press release by the Sheriff's Department, and she confirmed that Flores has been arrested. District administration was made aware of an allegation involving a teacher at Graves County Middle School. School officials immediately reported this information to the Graves County Sheriff's Department, and as we have since been informed that as a result of the investigation, charges have been filed. In addition, Matting said the school was cooperating with law enforcement and was focused on protecting the students' safety. That's the only thing they should be doing. All right, now, for more reasons to pull your kids from public school, you have in Pennsylvania a third teacher fired at the same high school after a sex crime scandal and cover-up has been revealed. Now the superintendent appears to be pulled in as well. Martin Gaddy and Daniel Servone were charged earlier this year with sex crimes against students at Laurel Highlands High School in Pennsylvania. Now, a third staff member has also been terminated following an investigation into alleged inappropriate behavior with the former student dating back to 2009. Parents have repeatedly claimed that the superintendent, Jesse Wallace, knew about the allegations but failed to act and protect the students. On Wednesday, the school board voted 6-3 to rescind the 3-year contract extension they had given him. His deal will now expire next summer instead of running through 2030. I don't even understand why they're keeping him at all. But this is what happens when school districts prioritize protecting the adults over protecting the children. I wonder how many children were molested in the intervening years when they could have been protected. All right. Before we continue, I have just another quick sponsor message from our friends over here on Rumble. You guys have probably noticed Rumble is growing. It's not slowing down anytime soon. You got more creators, more content, and a platform that puts users and free speech first. And if you're watching here regularly, there is a way to upgrade your entire experience on Rumble. They are now running that limited time summer sale on Rumble Premium. It's the lowest price they've ever offered because with Premium, you get ad-free viewing across the platform. There's no pre-rolls. There's no interruptions, just the content that you came for. Plus, you unlock exclusive content from top creators out there like Steven Crowder, Dr. Disrespect. You get special live events and a lot of stuff you're not going to see other places. I also play video games a couple of times a month. This is the deal. Normally, Rumble Premium is $99 a year, but during the summer sale, you can lock it in at $69 a year for life. Not just 1 year, it's every year you stay subscribed that allows you to keep the $69 rate. There's no promo code or extra steps. You just go to rumble.com/premium and the summer sale is already applied. Once again, that's rumble.com/premium and you can lock in the lowest price that Rumble has ever offered. It's ad-free exclusive content and a price that never goes back up, but only if you grab it before the summer sale ends. Thank you very much to Rumble once again. All right. Continuing today's story, we finally have an update on the saga of Fort Knox. If you'll remember, early on in 2025, Senator Rand Paul announced his intention to force an audit of the gold at Fort Knox. Well, he posted this video earlier today saying he was there and he was going to go and look and see if the 147 million ounces of gold that are supposed to be at Fort Knox were actually there. He said, we're going to go deep underground and see the gold, but more importantly, we're going to be talking today about what happened to our dollar when we separated from gold in 1971. I'm going underground, and I'll let you know what I see in a bit. He did report back, but first, let's see the video.
Fort Knox, we've come to see the gold. Our country has about 147 million ounces of gold, and about half of it is stored here at Fort Knox. We're going to be going deep underground to see the gold, but more importantly, we're going to be talking today about what happened to our dollar when we separated from gold in 1971. Over 85% of the value of the dollar has been lost since we delinked from gold. So there is a problem. The media now calls this affordability, but what it really is inflation. We run a debt. As the deficit runs up, $2 trillion a year, part of that debt is bought by the Federal Reserve with newly created dollars. This leads to inflation and prices are up. And my goodness, just go to the grocery store, still look at the price of meat. Prices are up 25% in the last 5 years. It's inflation. It's related to deficit spending. It's related to unbalanced budgets. So we're going to look at the gold today, but really what we're talking about is why is our paper currency failing us and why does our country continue to run such massive debts? I'm going down underground, and I'll let you know what I see in a little bit. Thanks.
So, yes, the short answer is Rand Paul says the gold is there. Now, all of the gold that the United States possesses on its books is not at the Federal Reserve. But he says, yes, the gold is here, approximately 147 million ounces. It's impressive, but the real point is what it still teaches in 2026. In 1971, we severed the dollar from the gold. That's when we went to the oil pegging standard. And since then, the currency has lost 85% of its value. Prices are far higher because the money itself is weaker. A family making $50,000 with 2 kids has not received a 25% raise in the last 5 years, and as such, we are all falling behind. This is now often called affordability, but the accurate word is inflation. We run annual deficits of $2 trillion. The Federal Reserve buys about a third of that debt by creating new money. Every new dollar dilutes the value of the dollars already in people's pockets. Gold does not expand when Congress does, paper does, and that is the difference. Surter says female teachers get away with more because guys are taught to look at getting an older woman as a conquest. They don't think too much beyond that. Then Principal Enigma says, hope you had a great time with your family. Be grateful yours is functional. So many these days are not. Thank you, both of you. Yes. All right. So, like I said, about half the gold is at Fort Knox. The other half is in other places. So Rand Paul hasn't seen that. And although we don't have video from inside Fort Knox, we do have Rand Paul's assertion that the gold is there. But if you'll remember, the last time there was any sort of a public audit, testing on that gold was done, and it wasn't up to the purity standards that it was supposed to be, which seemed to indicate that, at least on some level, the gold had been diluted at some point during its being kept there at Fort Knox. So, I don't know. We've got gold, but it's not like it's empty, and that's a good thing. Oh, and if you want to talk about probably the most obvious headline I saw today, the CIA is warning that Israel is seeking to make defense ties with the U.S. harder to undo. Yeah, that is very, very obvious. And I think that that's what everybody was concerned about with the passage of that recent Israeli military and intelligence cooperation bill. But it was interesting to see that this is a report coming from the Central Intelligence Agency. It appears that the U.S. intelligence community believes that Israel seemingly is aiming to entrench itself in U.S. institutions and more permanently capture American support. They absolutely are. There is no denying that. Members of the CIA and other intelligence officials allegedly wrote this assessment about Israel's strategy to connect itself to American weapons, industrial, intelligence programs, a capital and empire report is claiming. Now, the alleged report claims that public U.S. aid to Israel would gradually be replaced by long-term institutional relationships through which financial aid could subtly be spread between government programs. That is not good. The alleged CIA document has yet to be released, and the names of any specific individuals enacting this plan have not yet been disclosed. Looking forward to seeing it being declassified. I want to draw down American support to Israel to zero, Netanyahu said in that 60 Minutes interview. But it appears that by doing so, he wants to instead spread it out across a number of other things that would immediately benefit Israel, and I don't see how that would benefit the United States. Now, the CIA was asked for comment on this, but they did not give one. Israel spent more than $100 million since 2023 on foreign influence. That's according to a July report by the Quincy Institute, and that's related to Foreign Agent Registration Act filings. We've all heard about, because I've reported on it, Brad Parscale, the former Trump presidential campaign manager, received $9 million from the state of Israel for his firm, Clock Tower X. At least 80% of Clock Tower X content is tailored to Gen Z audiences across platforms, which includes TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, podcasts, and other relevant digital and broadcast outlets. That is not a mistake. Of course, Israel is looking to appeal to those younger generations because they are far less tolerant of allowing the relationship to go unquestioned. So, yeah, very obviously, Israel is looking to embed itself in America. All right. And, guys, we're going to go ahead and end it there because I need to go get us some dinner. I'm starving. And we've got, of course, Baseless Conspiracies tonight at 10:30. So hopefully you can join me there. I need to say thank you to Family Man for gifting 5 subscriptions to the good folks over there on Rumble. Thank you so much. Also over here on Pilled, Darla says, thanks, Zach. Don't forget about the dancing nurses and doctors. Evil, dark part of the history. PTSD from one who experienced it up close and personal. Well, I'm still glad you're here. Candylicious says, never even wore a mask here. Good for you, hun. The floor is yours. Says, I work for the city of New York, and I'm letting you know the wokeness is real. They had a blood drive the other day, and I asked whether they were going to screen for people who had taken the COVID shot at any point, and I was deemed an anti-vaxxer. I will do everything within my power to never take publicly donated blood, because I'm sure that there's no way that they're screening for that stuff. They're probably asking people and then keeping that blood aside for themselves, and then just in the general blood population allowing it to pool up, just like they did with HIV during the early 1980s. Filter Dog says, many of my friends at church, especially those over 60, were terrified of COVID, could not wait for the death jab. Once they got it, it was a 180 mindset. COVID was no longer dangerous. Very sad to see how fooled they were. Yeah, that is terrible. Candylicious says, when I lived in Virginia, Acorn came about the census. My husband ran them off, and we did not get counted that year. Sean Joe says, Rode was on the FBI list of those who took China money. Ah, was he? Okay. Sean Joe, thank you for the can. Candylicious says they arrested an illegal here in St. Augustine school maintenance guy, and the blue hairs are out in force to get it released. It's kind of bad here. I was just there yesterday, and we did the ghost tour for my daughter's birthday, and there was a big house right there next to the water that had Trump signs all over it. I thought that was cool. Super D, thank you for the cookie. Sean Joe, thank you for the can. And Average Joe Patriot, my brother from another mother, thank you very much for the can as well. Make sure you're following Joe over there. All right, you guys, thanks for being here. Good luck. God bless. And don't forget about the final sponsor of tonight's program. That's going to be my friends over at onenessdrops.com/redpill78. Get your chlorine dioxide water purification kit so you can make clean, potable drinking water. You cannot survive longer than 3 days without water, and you probably wouldn't want to after 1 or 2. But you can also get yourself mullein extract for lung health, soursop extract for cellular regeneration, and my personal favorite, DMSO, which is carrier and brings blood flow to damaged areas. This is definitely something I think everybody should have in their medicine cabinet. Definitely check it out. Also, mypillow.com. Use the code RP78 to save up to 80% off of Mike's amazing American-made products. Also, rncstore.com/RP78 to save 15% off their Laetrile B17 apricot seed products. If you have any questions about those, you can go to my Rumble playlist on homeopathic remedies. You will see it right there. And, of course, my friends over at Pet Club 24/7.
Science proves that a healthy immune system is the body's first defense against the smallest of ailments to the most catastrophic. Coriolus Versicolor is the most sought-after, all-natural supplement for both humans and pets to help boost the immune system. There are over 400 studies worldwide on its effectiveness in humans, including Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, MD Anderson Cancer Center, and now from the University of Pennsylvania School of Veterinary Medicine. Together, we can help reverse this terrible tide now plaguing your loved ones and give them the immune-boosting supplements that they need.
redpillnews.petclub247.com. Check it out. That is definitely something that I would recommend to everybody. All right, I'm going to go ahead and set up a raid, and I'll see you guys tonight, or if I don't see you tonight, then I'll see you right here tomorrow at 5 p.m. for another episode of Red Pill News Live. Looks like maybe somebody put my show on a Reddit thread or something like that. I guess there was a bunch of people that were angry about our opinions over there on Rumble. You know, the funny thing, I would never presume to go to a podcast or a stream that I don't agree with and act like a big fucking faggot. But, you know, that's how we differ. All right, you guys, we'll see you later. Bye-bye.